Committee meeting. I am Alex Wan, I'm the chair of the committee. I'm joined by my colleagues. I'll start with my right, Jason Winston. To his right, Howard Shook, who's vice chair. To my left, Liliana Bakhtiari. And then to her left, she had to step out for a second, is Keisha Sean Waits. With that, we constitute a quorum, and this meeting is now officially called to order. All right, first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion? Motion from Bakhtiari, second by Juan. Let's open the vote to adopt the agenda, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
4 yeas, right? Yep, 4 yeas. Well, let's wait for Waits. Aye. So 5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. Agenda is adopted. Next item is approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion and a second, please? Second. Motion by Bakhtiari, second by Winston. Let's open that vote, please.
Waits is aye.
The vote is open.
I have to vote. Sorry. Oh yeah, how does this work?
Waits is aye.
Please vote. Vote is closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The item is approved. Next item is public comment. If you have not, is there a list of anyone who signed up? All right, while they're calling that up, it should populate on my screen. It's just a reminder that you have 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes. There'll be a timer on the screen. Nobody signed up for public comment. Okay. All right. Hold on a second. So while you're coming up, just a reminder, public comment, we allow 3 minutes per person. You will see a timer on the screen that will count down backwards for 3 minutes. As it approaches 1 minute, as your time up, I ask that you wrap your comment time. And then if you have them in written form and want to submit them that way, if you don't get a chance to finish, that's fine too. So, all right. So we have the Honorable Curtis Martin. You have your 3 minutes. Again, please mind the timer on the screen.
Good morning, everybody, or afternoon. This is Prophet Curtis Hirsch. I do it for a reason. I want to discuss homelessness again in Atlanta, Fulton County, DeKalb County. Atlanta Martyr Station that follow me around the city, stalking people while I'm visiting people on your train that's unclothed, but yet y'all follow around other people that's helping the city, that's trying to get things right with the city. Okay, now I know money comes from Congress. Money comes from Congress, legislature, representatives, before it get to city council. So you think the people coming to this podium is not as educated and understand law and city council just as much as you, and you're wrong. Now, I know there's money for homeless people. I know that. I know that. I know there's money funded for homeless people to build shelters. I know it. 40% of homelessness are gay youth. 40% of homeless people are gay youth. Gay youth. Now, how does that connect? Well, the dropout rate in Atlanta is 50%. You got 500 people graduating, 250 graduates in Atlanta, Fulton County, DeKalb County. So I do my homework. Now, Martyrs just suspended me for coming through the y'all Martyr Station. Just suspended me for coming through their gate without paying. I think they followed me and they knew it was me, and they said, well, we're going to arrest Curtis Harrison today because he's coming through the gate. But I'm looking at people smoking marijuana. Your cops walking past them. I'm looking at people, threatening people, arguing, fussing on your train, Martyr nowhere, Martyr police nowhere. Do you understand where I'm going with this? So if I get that petition going and then put this homeless thing on the ballot, then I know Congress sends money. I know HUD got the money, but y'all not doing it. The city mayor and y'all not fixing homeless shelters. Because Atlanta, Fulton County gave awarded money for homeless people. See, It's just that simple. No justice, no peace. So you think it's just a game, oh, he come down here, or we come down here and voice that peace. I was watching when these ladies was up here, the white girls and the black girls talk about homelessness in Atlanta, 4th and County, DeKalb County. Did you know a mental health woman would kill herself and her kids if she can't find no housing? Y'all don't know that? Don't you know a mental health woman would kill herself or her kids if she can't find no housing? But y'all seem not to care. Y'all, I say y'all, I mean city council, I mean governor, I mean mayor, I mean church. That's what I mean.
Thank you,
The
Mr.
fact
Hedge.
that y'all don't think that this is a serious matter, it bothers us.
Thank you, Mr. Hedge. Your time has expired. We appreciate if there are further.
I ain't finished yet. It bothers me, Mr. Alex, because I heard some things about you as well.
Go ahead and say it, but not on camera. Your time is up.
That you impregnated a woman in China and didn't take care of her.
So I thank you, sir. Your time. I explained the rules to you very clearly at the beginning. All right. All right. So that takes us next to, on the agenda. The next up is presentations. We do have the COVID-19 report. And do we have someone from finance? Yeah, Mr. Deloach, if you will. And everybody did get a printed copy of this.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jerry Deloach, Chief Risk Officer in the Office of Enterprise Risk Management out of the Department of Finance. And I'm going to present the COVID-19 report for September 2022. Slide 2 just talks about our reporting requirements as mandated by the Atlanta City Council. Slide 3 provides a summary of federal funds that have been provided to the City of Atlanta. It lists them out completely. One of the requests that was made at the last meeting was to provide a list of not only the committed funds, but the uncommitted amount that remained from each grant that we had. And so that information has been contained in the last column now. The next slide is a continuation of the list of all the grants that we have. Slide 5, it is a summary of the CRF obligation and the spend and breakdown. If you take a look at the far bottom right-hand side, it is showing an available amount of $1,030,000 that's available. Just a note of reference, we are in the process, as I speak now, of closing out CRF. The actual date for the closeout is September 30th. That $1 million that's showing there available now, we intend to allocate that to hazardous pay so that all the funds that have been assigned to the city will be utilized. When we do our next report in October, we'll provide a final summary of where we are with CRF because that program will have been closed out. Okay. The next slide begins to break down the individual spends associated with each of the federal grants that we've received. This shows our ERA obligations spend and breakdown. For ERA 1, the time period for obligating funds is September 30th, and we are in the process of finalizing that last contract related to that so that the funds are obligated by that time period, and then we have until December to actually spend those funds. ERA 2, September 30th of 2025, those funds have already been, for the most part, spent. That was the 15 and the 12 that we received earlier in the year. All right. On the next slide, this is ARPA Tranche 1 obligation and spend breakdown. If you'll take note to the far bottom slide, it will show you the available amount. What this means is that the funds have been obligated. We just have not started receiving expenses against those funds. Over the course of the next week, the CFO and the Chief Operating Officer and the Chief of Staff, including myself, there will be a meeting to assess where we are with spending. In the event that there are programs that are moving slowly, there will be a concerted effort to put them on notice that unless they spend those funds in an appropriate time frame, that those funds will be reallocated so that we can see some movement with some of the programs in Tranche 1 as well as in Tranche 2. Okay, slide 8 is the same thing. It shows the breakdown. Right now, it's showing the remaining balance as being $64 million. Once again, that's not a reflection of actual dollars available, We just have not seen the programs launched and seen funds being spent, seen expenses being applied against those funds, okay? Page 9 is the FAA breakdown. This is a grant out of the Department of Aviation. It's showing an available balance of about $24,000. They've done a pretty good job of spending those funds at Department of Aviation. The next one is a grant that's being managed by Department of Community Grants and Development. It is showing that they have spent all of those funds, which had like $11.4 million. The next slide, once again, a slide out of DOA. It is for ARP. They have approximately $274 million available to spend for that. The next one is the Emergency Solution Grant. They have an available balance of 3.72. They had an actual award of 12.7. There is some spend taking place with that, and they have until July of 2027 to spend those funds. The next one is Community Development Block Grant. They had a funded amount of $4.2 million. They have obligated costs of 3.6, actual costs of 3.6, and available balance of $560,000, and they have until July 2027 to spend those funds. The next breakdown, a grant out of community development and grants. They have approximately $2.7 million left, and they have a performance period that ends in July of 2027. The next grant is from Atlanta Police Department. They have an available balance of $260,000. For our nonprofit and philanthropic organization reporting, there has been no change to that particular slide. Slide 17 through 21 indicates our reporting requirements for donations that have been made to the city. As you can see, there have not been any donations made in probably the last 3 or 4 quarters, and that has trailed off, but this is all historical information that we have. And the last couple of slides are required by the ethics codes, and that information is available to the ethics office. Slides 22 through 23, it is a breakdown which shows, let me catch up. Okay, it shows the breakdown of the expenditures as opposed to where the funds are. Thus far, we have received a total of $256,300,138 for funds to respond to COVID-19, and that balances out in terms of expenditures and how we've obligated those funds against that amount. And are there any questions?
All right, questions or comments from my colleagues? All right, I'm going to go ahead and start. So on page 5, CRF obligation, that's got the upcoming September 30th deadline. You said that there's about $1 million, and if there's not, the backup plan is to apply it to hazardous pay?
That is correct.
Okay. Are we going to just use the same hazardous pay qualifications as we have in the past, or is there an opportunity to revisit that and broaden it to more eligible individuals?
Because of the time period and closing out the grant, we only have today through Friday to do that. We are going to use the list of employees who were eligible, we are drawing from the January 21 to June 21 employee pool for those employees who were eligible. Just for transparency, we had originally submitted that list of employees to FEMA for reimbursement, and we would draw from that list and then take those employees' names off of the FEMA reimbursement request.
So do you have to do that first? You have to get FEMA approval?
No, we do not, no. We just have to indicate to them, to avoid duplication, that that's what we've done.
I guess my perspective on this, and I don't know if this is you or CFO Bala, but we've heard on our side of this that the city's definitions of hazardous pay and who qualifies for it potentially is perhaps more limited than it should be or could be. But am I hearing that there's just not enough time at this point to be able to consider expanding that, broadening it?
Well, for purposes of the CRF, we don't have the time to consider that, but I do think that looking forward, in the event if there's an emergency in the future and the city wants to take advantage of that, then we need to have that conversation starting now so that we can prepare by passing ordinance or HR policy that captures that.
Okay. I would just encourage us, if we do get that opportunity, to look at that, because I do think, now looking back, I understand that during the time it was just on the fly, we had to make a quick determination, but I think looking back now, understanding how the different job responsibilities in the city, what folks had to do, might give us an opportunity to.
And we'd be happy to participate in the conversation with HR on that, because it may depend upon the nature
Gotcha.
of what the emergency is, and we could have different categories based on that.
And then my follow-up question is, for other funds that are expiring either September 30th or over the next 60 to 90 days, I mean, is there a similar safety valve plan that if the original thought in terms of applications of the funds doesn't materialize quick enough, do we have a backup plan, like a hazardous pay bucket or something else?
Those funds are much more specialized.
Okay.
They were dedicated exclusively for emergency rental assistance. And so to the extent that our application pool tapers off, then those funds will have to be returned, because we cannot reallocate them to something else other than emergency rental assistance.
Could we begin, I mean, can we up the funding to organizations or agencies that we've already done in order to, entrust them with that to disperse them versus us?
Well, for emergency rental assistance, we only have one agency that we're working with as our primary subrecipient, and we have made those funds available to United Way.
Gotcha.
And we, as a matter of fact, we have a meeting with them tomorrow afternoon to get an update for where we're at. The only thing that we can do is continue to keep the portal open, but unless there are applicants who qualify,
Gotcha.
Those funds have to be returned.
I just encourage us to be as creative as possible. I mean, I think that would be a real shame if we had the available resources and couldn't find a different way because of a time deadline to be able to make it work in the community. So,
and the only outlet we probably have is to make sure that individual people who have applied, that we maximize the amount that individuals can get over the course of ERA 1, as well as the original allocation we have for emergency rental assistance. And we can maximize on that, and we'll look into that.
Okay, and then my final question has to do with, what page was it? Page 11, the DOA ARP, the one that still has $274 million available balance. What's the project performance period on those funds?
Don't hold me to that, but I think it's 2024, but
Okay,
we will
so
look
we have
into
time.
that and make sure. But I do know they have substantial more time to work on that, and that's why they have not spent that.
That's a relief. I just wanted to make sure that we had plenty of runway on that. All right, those are my questions. Councilmember Bakhtiari.
Thank you. I should probably use my mic, shouldn't I? So looking at everything, echoing some of what Councilmember Juan said, the pieces about the hazard pay, obviously we have too short of a runway, but I'm guessing that some of the distribution of funds coming up in other fiscal years will also be applied to hazard pay or towards employee benefits, correct?
And when you said other future years, that's a budgetary question. In terms of CARES, those funds are limited. That's what we're spending now, the $88 million. So I can't speak to future years for hazardous pay as it relates to the funds that were made available to us for COVID-19.
I guess what I'm wondering is, understood, I guess what I'm wondering is there a way to actually expand the qualifications? Because right now, I mean, I think over this last year, how many meetings have we taken with city employees that are curious about why they didn't qualify for hazard pay? So I'm wondering, what is it, and CFO, maybe this is a question for you, I don't know, but what is it that we can do to expand who is eligible for hazard pay in the instance that we get this funding again?
That's a broader question for HR.
Yeah.
I was going to say the hazard pay designation was, and determination was made by the Department of Human Resources for certain job categories. And essentially the same, I can speak on from my stance and my coordination with the prior commissioner on this, is that the initial framework for hazard pay was for frontline employees that worked during and through the pandemic. And then there was tweaks that were made after the transition back into the work office to make sure that it included frontline workers with certain job categories, but also frontline workers with certain job categories that do not have hazard pay components already baked into their structural salaries. And that ended up being a determination. It was brought to council at the time to approve the extension of hazard pay for that employee classification, and that is the classification that we are working under right now.
Understood. And so I have follow-up questions on that will not apply to you. So I apologize. So thank you. But I will have, that's good to know. Thank you, CFO. I appreciate that. Did you already go over the uncommitted amount? Yeah, I'm curious about on page 4, the federal funds continued, the total approved funds, the uncommitted amount being over 171 million. What is our runway for spending on that?
And you also have to take, excuse me, if you look at 64 of that is coming from ARPA Tranche 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of that also includes 21 million for emergency rental assistance, which we have now obligated.
Okay.
And then you see a large amount for 77 million, which is coming from the airport. So I think that large portion from the airport takes up a large portion of that.
Okay. So what we're saying is this is already slated to be spent.
It's slated to be spent. We just have not received any expenses against it.
Got it. And what is our deadline for that funding?
It's on each of the individual sheets that I spoke to earlier as it relates to each program.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's right here. The expenditure deadline, September. Okay. We should probably get that.
Yeah, although, I mean, the funds that I just asked about, DOA ARP of the 270 plus million is not reflect, it shows a TBD on this. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that just needs to get updated or.
Okay. In terms of the spend deadline, which page are you on?
Well, so
page 5.
Page 5, if you then look at page 11, the fund that I just asked about, you mentioned that there was available balance of 274 million. And so that number isn't reflected in the page 4. It still shows a TBD on that line in terms of uncommitted amount.
Right, and I will check with them on that, but they have that. It just needs to be updated. Yeah, that's it. It just needs to be updated.
Okay. Because this 171 that we're talking about needs to be spent by the end by.
It varies. I think he's saying it goes through 2020.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And just the question is, as we move down to some of the later pages, on pages, for example, 8 and I believe 9, we have longer timelines on these.
That is correct.
That's
That's
right.
correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Deloach.
Right.
I appreciate it.
Thank you all.
I think you're just hearing from us. We want to make sure we use and apply as many of these dollars as possible.
Yes, I just don't want us to make headlines again for having to return
Understood. Okay.
dollars that we did not know we had. So thank you.
All right, other questions or comments from my colleagues on the presentation? All right, thank you, Mr. Deloach. That moves us on to the next item in our agenda, which is ordinances for first read. We have 3 items to sound. Ms. Lindo, if you would kindly read those in, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair, item number 1 is 22-1756. This is an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing and adopting a memorandum of understanding for the lease of certain property having an address of 72 Marietta Street, Atlanta, Georgia, by the Department of Watershed Management, authorizing all expenditures to be paid from the accounts listed herein and for other purposes. Item number 2 is 22-1757. This is an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to transfer residual funds from various bond fund accounts to the Series 2019A and various purpose general obligation bond fund to amend the fiscal year 2023 budget in the aggregate principal amount of $772,972.95 and for other purposes.
I think I've got the wrong notes. I think I've got the notes from the 14th. But that's okay, I've got my copy, sorry. And colleagues, I did want to share with y'all that under presentations, we were originally supposed to hear from Atlanta Information Management, but Mr. Sankey is out sick today, and so we're going to postpone that to a later meeting. So, all right, that now takes us to the regular agenda, ordinances for second read. The first item is number 22-01735, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer on behalf of the Department of Transportation to pay all outstanding invoices to Suncoast Restoration and Waterproofing LLC for contract number listed, Alston Drive culvert repair in an amount not to exceed $18,000.00. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from various fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. Mr. Smith, are you here to speak to this? Or is there someone else from the department? Anyone? Okay, well, I'm going to put this one to the side in the hopes that someone from the department will be here to speak to this one, unless there's any objection. All right, let's keep moving on. 22-01736, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee to amend Chapter 114 Personnel, Article 4, Classification Pay of the Code of Ordinances, City of Atlanta, Georgia, so as to provide for certain position abolishments, creations, reclassifications, class creations, above entry authorizations, employee position transfers, position funding allocation changes, and other personnel actions in line with the FY 2023 budget corrections and for other purposes. The department has asked that we hold this as the new Commissioner of Human Resources comes on board. I'll make that motion, seconded by Shook. If there's no discussion, let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. This item will be held. Next item is 22-01737. There is a substitute for this. I'm going to read in the caption and then make the motion to bring that in. It's a substitute ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the First Amendment to Cooperative Purchasing Agreement number listed, Kronos Workforce Management Systems with Kronos Incorporated, on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management to modify the initial term of the agreement to be retroactively effective October 12, 2021 through July 28, 2022, in accordance with Ordinance 22-1033, and add one-year renewal option to exercise the first renewal option retroactively effective from July 29, 2022 through March 17, 2023, an amount not to exceed $238,636.46 in accordance with Section 2-1163, subsection C of Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the Fund Department organization and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. The motion is to bring forth the substitute, seconded by Shook. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before us. Tez Andrews, I believe, is speaking to this. Mr. Andrews.
Yes. So as many of you know,
And introduce yourself real quick.
Tez Andrews, IT Director for Application and Development for AIM.
You want to tell us about the legislation, and then we'll take questions from
Yes. As many of you are aware, Kronos is our city's current timekeeping system. And in August, we presented legislation to procure new time clocks, which was through Time Clocks Plus, to help us with transitioning to Oracle Time and Labor. The primary purpose of this legislation is really to extend Kronos' contract to March 2023, which aligns with the underlying Cobb County Cooperative. The purpose in doing so also allows our system to be fully implemented, which is the new Oracle Time and Labor module by that time. And our target implementation date is February 2023. No issues to report there. Things are going well with the implementation process. It's also important to note that this legislation includes ordinance number 22-01033. This ordinance represents the extension from October 2021 to July 2022, which we presented to FEC in February. Though the legislation was approved at the time, it wasn't contractually executed upon. Therefore, AIM was advised to bring it back to ensure we were able to extend it to our transition to Oracle Time and Labor.
All right, questions from my colleagues. Mr. Shook.
Okay, so are we going straight from Kronos to Oracle?
Yes. So phase one is the pay by schedule. That's actually scheduled for the 15th of October. Pay by clock is due February 2023. So yes, that is really a two-phase transition.
What explains the lag?
So the clocks, Time Clocks Plus has to be installed and really tested out and implemented. So really just the time frame between now and February is implementation time.
But it fell behind the original hoped-for schedule, right?
No, didn't fall behind. When we put forth the legislation in February, did not project when it was, how long it was going to take at the time. But now we fully engaged development, have our legislation approved for Time Clocks Plus. So now we got a great timeline.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions from my colleagues? So I think you mentioned that while we had approved the extension earlier, the contract was never executed.
Correct.
What happened there? Just out of curiosity.
Correct. Well, a few things. We were still in the requirements phase of what it was going to take to actually transition. So to really execute it without knowing a drop dead time of when we would actually transition wasn't for the best benefit of the city. But now that we know that for sure, we know we have enough time to implement.
And you said that the substitute legislation essentially wraps all of it up and then catches us up to date and carries us
Correct.
through March. All right, other questions from my colleagues? All right, I'll put forward a motion to adopt on substitute. Is there seconded by Winston? Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote's closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The item is approved on substitute. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did I hear Mr. Smith? Did he come back in? There you go. Why don't you come on up and let's go ahead and go back to 22-01735. And this is the Suncoast Restoration and Waterproofing contract. I won't read the caption again, but you'll tell us about the legislation, please.
Well, good afternoon, council members. Alan Smith, Interim Deputy Commissioner, ATL DOT. So this legislation is just simply to pay the outstanding invoice of $18,000 for the Austin Drive emergency culvert repair. The work is complete. We just need to pay the outstanding invoices.
Questions from my colleagues? Mr. Winston.
Curious, was the work satisfactory? We got a rare opportunity to look at it in retrospect.
It's good to go. Yes.
Alan, this seems pretty hefty. I don't know. No, I move to approve.
All right, there's a motion to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Shook. I did want to go back, though, and ask. I understand the initial contract expired almost a year ago. And so walk me through kind of the time reconciliation of how that happened. Was work continuing after that? And then what caught someone's attention and what's being done to prevent it from happening?
Sure. So there were two things that happened. One, once the work began, we found that there were some structural issues that weren't identified in the beginning. The second thing was that the contractors had to demobilize at the city's direction because of a nearby golf tournament at East Lake, because of the traffic impacts and things like that.
I don't appreciate the shade.
The chair did not recognize Councilmember Bakhtiari.
No shade, I promise.
I'm gonna come up there and snatch that mic.
And so that caused a bit of delay. The work did get completed, but when we introduced legislation previous to this to pay them, it was actually a resolution, and we were informed that it needed to be an ordinance, so we needed to resubmit it.
Okay. Other questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, there's a motion from Bakhtiari, I think seconded by Shook. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote's closed.
Commissioner, come get Alan.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. This item is approved. All right, that now takes us to item number 6, which is 22-01740, an ordinance by council members Howard Shook and Alex Wan, amending the fiscal year 2023 general fund budget by anticipating and appropriating an amount not to exceed blank from the council president and council member carry forward accounts with a net amount of blank to be returned to the council president and council member carry forward account for the true up of the FY 2023 carry forward balances and for other purposes. Council director has requested that we hold this for a cycle while they finalize all the numbers. Motion by Wan, second by Shook. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote's closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. This item will be held. Next item is 22-01741. There is a substitute that changes the caption. I'll read in the new caption and make the motion to bring it forward. It's an ordinance by council members Dustin Hillis and Matt Westmoreland, as substituted by Finance Executive Committee, authorizing a donation in an amount not to exceed $15,000.00 from the Post 2 at-large and Council District 9 carry-forward accounts to the Best Academy Climbing Club at the Overlook and for other purposes. There's a motion to bring forward the substitute, seconded by Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote first, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. Substitute is before us. Any questions or comments on this paper? If not, I'll make a motion to approve on substitute. Is there seconded by Bakhtiari? Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. This item is approved on substitute. All right, without objection, I'm going to take items 8, 10, and 11 together. First item is 22-01744, an ordinance by Council Member Byron D. Amos authorizing the transfer of $10,000.00 from the District 3 carry-forward account to the District 3 distribution account to continue serving the Atlanta community for the public good and for other purposes. Item number 10 is 22-01749, an ordinance by Council Members Winston, Westmoreland, and Dozier authorizing a donation in an amount not to exceed $15,000.00 to the Atlanta Community Food Bank and for other purposes. And item 11 is 22-01753, ordinance by Council Member Marcy Collier Overstreet authorizing the transfer of $10,000.00 from the District 11 carry-forward account to the District 11 distribution account to continue serving the Atlanta community for the public good and for other purposes. I'll make a motion to approve all three. Is there a second? Seconded by Bakhtiari. If there's no further discussion, let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. Those three items are approved. Item number 9 has a substitute that changes the caption, so I'll read in the new caption and then make the motion. It's an ordinance by Council Members Overstreet, Westmoreland, Hillis, Boone, Wan, Faroki, Bakhtiari, and Winston, as substituted by Finance Executive Committee, authorizing a donation in an amount not to exceed $34,000.00 to the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta to support LGBTQ outreach and the Mayor's Youth Scholarship Program and for other purposes. I made the motion to bring forward the substitute, seconded by Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. Vote is closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. This item, the substitute is now before us. Now you can make your motion. Motion from Bakhtiari to approve on substitute. Anybody else? I'll second it. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The item is approved on substitute. All right, that takes care of our ordinances. Let's go to resolutions. First, I'm going to take 12 and 13 together, as both of these will be held. Item 22-R4040, a resolution by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond authorizing the City of Atlanta to accept a donation of food and food service donations for a ceremony to be hosted in recognition of India's celebration of 75 years of independence. Such donation shall be in a total value not to exceed blank and for other purposes. And then 22-R4341, a resolution by Councilmember Howard Shook authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to refund customers for overpayments to water and sewer accounts in an amount of blank, all funds to be charged to and paid from fund department organization account numbers listed and for other purposes. I'll make the motion to hold both items. Seconded by Winston. If there's no further discussion, let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. Those items will be held. Next item, 22-R4347. There is a substitute that also changes the caption. It's a resolution by Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet, as substituted by Finance Executive Committee, authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into amendment number 2 for contract number listed, cost recovery and grants management consulting services with Landmark Consulting, LLC, in an amount not to exceed $2,510,000.00. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund department organization and account numbers listed and for other purposes. I'll make a motion to bring forward the substitute, seconded by Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The substitute is before us. Mr. Deloach, are you still in here? If I can have you come up here and explain this legislation to us, please.
Yes, this particular piece of legislation is requesting authority to enter into an amendment number 2 with Landmark Consulting to provide us with compliance monitoring and eligibility support for Tranche 2 of ARPA. That's the second set of funds that we received on June 9th. That sum that you're looking at, it actually reflects 3 grants that we're currently working on. That's ARPA Tranche 2. That's the FEMA reimbursement that we're seeking, as well as the ERA, the $21 million. And so these funds will help us to provide consulting services related to compliance, eligibility, and monitoring the programs. And they also assist us with the financial, and they work with grants accounting to do reconciliation, and they assist us with the filings related to these programs as well.
Thank you. Is the source of funding, can we take this from grant funds?
No, it comes from the actual grant that's being, that they are monitoring.
So basically, there's an administrative
That is
tranche
correct.
within the grant funds to cover this.
That's correct.
Very good. Okay. Other questions for Mr. Deloach? Seeing none, I'll make the motion to approve on substitute. Is there a second? Seconded by Winston. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. That item is approved. On substitute, 22-R4412, resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute amendment number 5 to FC 10670, heating and air conditioning services with ARS Mechanical LLC on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management to add funding for the Departments of Parks and Recreation, Enterprise Asset Management, Public Works, Atlanta Department of Transportation, and Watershed Management for HVAC repairs at various facilities in an amount not to exceed $1,130,000.00. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund department organization and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. Mr. Santiel.
Greetings, council members, and Remy Santil, Commissioner of Department of Enterprise Asset Management. The purpose of this legislation is to authorize amendment number 5 and to add the funding from the discussed departments to this legislation.
All right, questions for Mr. Santil. Is there a motion? All right, the motion from Winston to approve. Seconded by Shook. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. This item is approved. I did vote in support of this, but I did want to just at least send a signal out. I see the CPO out there. This to me is yet another example of a contract that was let out, and via the amendments, the total amount now is well. It's multiples of what the original RFP was. So you don't need to speak. We know you're coming to make a presentation later this month, but just, I look forward to the reforms that you're going to make that will help us. Because I think letting out a bigger contract could attract more qualified contractors. But
yes, and the CPO and I have discussed some of this already, so we'll be able to on this.
I appreciate that. That's okay. While you're up there, we got, I think the next 3 are yours as well. 22-R4413, resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to exercise the second renewal option for FC 10221 on-call painting services with A&D Painting Company, Inc. on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management and Parks and Recreation for a term of 1 year, effective November 2nd, 2022 through November 1st, 2023, in an amount not to exceed $120,000.00. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund department organization and account number listed herein and for other purposes. Mr. Santiel.
And yes, this legislation is as stated. We are just simply adding more funds to this particular project in the same manner for the projects.
Questions or comments? Is there a motion? All right, motion from Winston, second from Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. This item is approved. All right, next item, 22-R4414. There is a substitute with a change in the caption. So I'll read in the new caption. It's a substitute resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to exercise the second renewal option for FC 10276, job order contracting consulting services with Gordian Group, Inc., on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management for a term of 1 year, effective October 7, 2022 through October 6, 2023, and to execute the Fourth Amendment to the agreement to add the departments listed in Exhibit A as authorized users to pay for job order contracting licensing fees. Add funding to conduct a job order contracting, planning, and consulting assessment in an amount not to exceed $185,500.00. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. I'll move to bring forward the substitute, seconded by Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. Vote's closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The substitute is now before us. All right, Mr. Santil.
So this legislation is, as stated, is to execute the Fourth Amendment, add the departments as listed, and to conduct a condition assessment on park facilities and public work facilities as a project.
Questions? Am I correct in seeing that the fees are actually going down on this?
Yes, so we structured them in a tier aspect, so as we spend more, the fees go down.
All right, is there any other questions? Is there a motion? Motion from Bakhtiari, seconded by Winston. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote's closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The item is approved as substituted. All right, and I think your last one is 22-R4415, resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to issue task order number listed for contract number listed, job order contracting services small, with Brown and Root Industrial Services, LLC, for the installation of carbon fiber at additional joist location per final design on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Assets Management in an amount not to exceed $69,000.00. All work to be charged to and paid from accounts listed and for other purposes. All right, Mr. Santil.
Yes, and this legislation is just simply to do some repairs in the law department for some file storage cabinets. So this is what this legislation is about.
Really, it's carbon fiber at additional joist location.
Right, so we have to reinforce the floors because of the installation.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, motion. All right, motion from Bakhtiari, second by Winston. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. Vote's closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. That item is approved as it is. Okay, next item is 22-R4416, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute cooperative agreement number listed, IT Research and Advisory Services with Infotech Research Group, Inc., on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management, utilizing General Services Administration contract number listed for a term of 1 year with 2 one-year renewal term options in an amount not to exceed $197,274.55. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account number listed herein and for other purposes. Is Mr. McKinney here? If you'll come up and, oh wait, we have an amendment to this first. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way first. This amendment is to correct the Department of Aviation funding account number to read as listed. I'll make the motion to amend, seconded by Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote's closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The paper is amended. All right, Mr. McKinney.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Kamal Makini. I'm the newly minted Deputy Chief Information Officer in AIM. The Infotech Agreement is presented for research and services that will support AIM and others to ensure that we are continuing to implement practices that reflect industry standards. These services are needed to help with research for new and emerging tech, to assist with auditing large contracts for savings, to conduct strategy workshops to assist leadership, with complex organizational changes, and to provide templates and tools to aid executive and mid-level managers with tactical day-to-day needs.
What's the time frame on their work, and then is there like a summary report that they provide with their findings? I'd be very curious to see that.
I don't have that information for you here, but I can certainly get that and bring it back.
Yeah, I think it would be kind of fascinating. And if there have been previous ones too, that'd be helpful, particularly in advance of when we reschedule the AIM presentation. I think, it's good that we're spending this money and investing in kind of outside sources to come look at what we're doing, but I'm not sure that we often get to see or understand what their recommendations are and what.
Absolutely.
So, all right, Mr. Shook, do you have a question?
Okay, so does this company merely observe the landscape and make recommendations, or do they also offer solutions?
My understanding is that they offer solutions, that they're very hands-on in terms of their partnership and consultation. So it is more than simply providing an idea or a guide. That is my understanding, yes.
Okay. Is there any angst about using someone to make recommendations that also wants to sell you something?
I can't speak to any angst.
I'm a little more cynical than that.
I understand. Certainly care would be taken to make sure that recommendations are taken as such. And
I won't vote for any proposed product that these people provide that comes from a recommendation they made.
Understood.
All right, other questions or comments from my colleagues? All right, if not, I'll make a motion to approve as amended. Is there a second? Seconded by Winston. If there's no further deliberation, let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote's closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The item is approved as amended. All right, that takes us now to dual referred items. We did have 2 come out of public safety. I'm going to go ahead and take them together if there's no objection. And they were favorable on condition out of public safety. Substitute, we got a substitute for it, don't we? Sorry, let's do that first. All right, 22-01743, it's an ordinance by Councilmember Dustin Hillis as substituted by Finance Executive Committee, authorizing the mayor or his designee to authorize the chief financial officer to execute a master lease agreement with J.P. Morgan Chase Bank N.A. for the acquisition of 59 Dodge Chargers with police packages on behalf of the Atlanta Police Department in an amount not to exceed $3,163,083.35 and for other purposes. I'll make the motion to bring forward the substitute. Can we get seconded by Bakhtiari? Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote's closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. That substitute is before us. I'll go ahead and take the second one and bring the substitute before us as well. It's 22-01752. Ordinance by Councilmember Howard Shook is substituted by Finance Executive Committee, authorizing the mayor or his designee to authorize the chief financial officer to execute an intergovernmental agreement with Buckhead Community Improvement District for the acquisition of 6 Dodge Chargers with police packages on behalf of the Atlanta Police Department in an amount not to exceed $319,017.90. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed and for other purposes. I move to bring forward the substitute. Need a second?
Second.
Seconded by Shook. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote's closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. Both substitutes are before us. Mr. Knight.
Good afternoon, Chairman Wan, members of the committee. Courtney Knight, Treasurer of the City of Atlanta. So both of these items are related to the replacement of police vehicles for APD. They were able to identify a dealership up in Pennsylvania that had a large number of Dodge Chargers available for conversion to police vehicles for the City of Atlanta. So they came forward to us to see if finance could respond quickly and determine a source of funding for the purchase of those vehicles. For 22-0-1743, I sound a little bit like a broken record. We've identified again J.P. Morgan Chase Bank as a source of tax-exempt leasing for 59 of the vehicles. It'll be a 5-year tax-exempt lease. will make annual payments beginning September 15th, 2023. With respect to the vehicles being purchased by the Buckhead Community Improvement District, the CID will actually purchase those vehicles, deed them over to the City of Atlanta. We'll repay the CID over a 5-year, zero-interest annual payment for those vehicles. So we've got a good number of vehicles coming into APD through these two transactions.
Questions for Mr. Knight? Mr. Shook.
Well, just a comment. I hope the rooks won't tear half of them up in the first 30 days, but I'll move approval on substitute.
I was going to say the same thing. There's a motion from Shook to approve both items on substitute, seconded by Winston. If there's no further deliberation, let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote's closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays, the motion carries. The items are approved on substitute. All right, that takes us to papers under held. I see Mr. Young out there. Does that mean we're ready to go with that one? All right, so that would be item number 37. Oh, no, we're not? Okay, never mind. Yep. Retract that. Item number 35, however, 22-01699, an ordinance by Councilmember Alex Wan authorizing a donation in an amount not to exceed blank to the Atlanta Public Schools in support of efforts to raise $15 million in celebration of the 150th anniversary of the district and for other purposes. Colleagues, I'd like to, I'll move that we move this forward without recommendation on condition of a substitute on Monday. I have not had a chance to go through and talk with each of you to see if you'd be interested in participating in this. So I'll make that motion, seconded by Bakhtiari. I see that Mr. Shook has a question.
Yeah, I do. I'm going to be out on Monday, and so, but I have pledged to you that I would make a donation, so I would guess need to get that done in this format, right?
Well, no, we can just incorporate that into the final amendment for Monday, the the substitute on Monday.
Okay.
So I'll loop back with you on that.
Thank you.
All right, I'll come in and tell you about it after this. So, all right, so the motion is to move this forward with no recommendation on condition, and seconded by Bakhtiari. If we're ready, let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote's closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. This item, that motion just carries. That was a long motion, so I'm not going to repeat it. All right, Ms. Lindo, any other legislative items?
No, Mr. Chair.
Wow, okay, I have one announcement. I'm going to try and get out, if we can get out here at 2:30. FEC committee will convene a work session on Thursday, October 13th at 1 p.m. with the Fulton County Tax Assessor's Office to review the property assessment process. The work session will be here in Committee Room 1. Any other announcements or comments for the good of the order? All right. Don't hold us past 2:30.
I was
I
going
won't
to say, just go
recognize.
outside and enjoy the day. It's a beautiful fall day. Thank you.
All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you.